Good evening and welcome to the West Milton Council Workshop for February 27th, 2024. We'll start by having roll call.
Mayor Hurst.
Here.
Mr. Dorman.
Here.
Mr. Horn.
Here.
Ms. Metz.
Here.
Ms. Gregory.
Here.
Mr. Fogel. Mr. Cox.
Here.
All right, thank you. First on the docket is the Child Advocacy Center update presentation.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Nisley. I'm the program director for the Child Advocacy Center here in Miami County. I did not print off enough PowerPoint, so I apologize. If you want, Chief has them. I can also send them if you want a hard copy as well. But if you remember, we were here a little over a year and a half ago just to talk to you all about what we were planning to do, what we were trying to prepare for, asking for your support as a community. And so I just wanted to come back and share what we've been able to do for the past year and share what we've been able to do with the support as a community to handle the cases of child abuse that we're seeing in Miami County. So this PowerPoint is just a real brief overview of that. Feel free if there's questions or anything that you have as we're going, just let me know. So kind of just to recap, we saw over 141 children for the year 2023 that came to the Center for Services. So that portion is a small portion of cases that were investigated in Miami County, is not all of the cases. That's primarily the sexual abuse cases and then severe physical abuse cases. So you'll see on the first page, we kind of have a breakdown of the types of cases that we saw. The overwhelming majority was for sexual abuse, which is typical. Most child advocacy centers, that is the main type of case that they handle. Next below that was 20. We saw 20 physical abuse cases, and then neglect, commercial sexual exploitation of children. So those were children who were involved in some online sexual exploitation, and then witness to violence. So kiddos that were present or observing abuse or some other significant violence. Those are kiddos that we served as well. The next slide below that is just the age breakdown. So, and I realize that these are kind of small and condensed in your printout, and so they don't, if they were on the PowerPoint, they'd be much larger, but 56 of our kiddos were in that 7 to 12 age range. So the majority of the kiddos that we did see through the center were kind of that elementary, middle school age. Just kind of something interesting just to share with you all. When we were starting this, we were curious how Miami County was going to kind of, what our numbers were going to look like compared to the rest of the state, and then also obviously compared to the rest of the country. And we are right on par with kind of just nationally what the average is. So the majority of cases are child sexual abuse. The majority of kiddos that that we see that are brought to our attention in this field are that 7 to 12 age range. So it was really interesting because I think sometimes we like to think that we were immune from some things, being a little of a smaller community. I came from working in Montgomery County, obviously a very large urban community, and so I was curious, and but we kind of fall right along with what the nation is seeing as well for these types of cases. Next page just has the breakdown of jurisdiction. So this is just the cases and where they came from in Miami County. So we had it broken down by all of our different law enforcement jurisdictions. So West Milton had about 3% of our cases. The overwhelming, obviously, majority was Troy and Piqua, and then the sheriff's office was close behind. So that's kind of our numbers in a nutshell. Just some other highlights to share with you. So if I don't know if any of you heard, but Aaron's Law passed in Ohio in the spring. It's requiring all K through 6 public schools to provide child sexual abuse prevention. And so we were contacted by the Educational Service Center when that passed, just for some help and assistance in you know, providing that, being kind of support, troubleshooting. And so we kind of stepped in and have helped with meeting some of those requirements for the school system. So one of the ways that we did that was we purchased a Child Safety Matters program to provide the curriculum to the schools that wanted to use that. I believe all of the public Miami County schools have adopted that program and are using that program. The other part of the law required school staff training, and so we've been providing that then as well for school districts. And so myself, local law enforcement have gone and done the school staff trainings to meet the requirements of Aaron's Law as well. And that training is specific to how to recognize child abuse, how to respond to it, how to make a report, and then kind of what happens at the Child Advocacy Center, so folks are understanding kind of what it looks like. We were able to hire a full-time therapist in October, so this is probably one of our main accomplishments. We doubled our staff and went from 1 to 2, and that's just thanks to the generous support. And so we were able to bring a full-time therapist on staff to see kiddos who have some trauma history. So the majority of the kiddos, obviously, that come through the Child Advocacy Center, we've been able to refer directly to her, so that kids are getting in quickly and they're getting in to see a specialized therapist to get services that they need. Without having to travel outside Miami County, without being waitlisted. We do not bill insurance, and so all of our services have been free of charge for families. So that's super exciting that we've been able to do that this past year. Next slide. One of the kind of other things that we try to do is just any opportunity that we have to increase awareness and help just elevate kind of all of our knowledge about this topic is by providing community presentations. So last year we provided over 25 community presentations to different civic organizations, church groups, just whoever is interested in learning more. We've been able to respond to those needs as well. We were able to secure a large grant from the state of Ohio, a pretty competitive grant. We were one of only 11 advocacy centers in the state to get this funding to help maintain personnel costs through the end of this year. So we're really excited about that. We've been really aggressive with our grant writing. And just a little fun fact, so when we were kind of pulling together information to put this together, the Ohio Network of Children's Advocacy Centers was really helpful in trying to help us plan and anticipate. And the average cost to respond to one of these cases in Ohio per child is a little over $2,000. So given the number of children that we served last year, that would have put our annual budget close to $300,000, and we did it in a little less than $100,000. So I'm really proud of that. It's part of why I'm here tonight. I think that it's really important to be transparent and honest about, when people donate their money and their time and to know kind of what it's going for, and that's part of this. So every community that has contributed, which is all of our law enforcement jurisdictions, we've been going out again to say, hey, this is what we've done, this is what we've used it for, this is the impact that your dollar is making in the community. So I'm really proud of that number as well. We were able to apply for our accrediting or associate developing member status through our accrediting body, which is the National Children's Alliance, in the fall, and we received that. So it's kind of our first step to full accreditation. That just means that we're following protocol and standards that are set nationally based on research and practice on how to respond to child abuse cases. So it's a huge step in the right direction for our community and for our county. So it's something definitely to be proud of. And we're also a member with Ohio Network of Children's Advocacy Centers, so I mentioned that before. They provide a lot of kind of support and technical assistance to us as well. We were able to play a role in successful prosecution of several cases this past year. And one thing at the bottom is just we've had active participation from all of our disciplines in the county. So we've really had seen folks come together and buy into this model and try to participate to make things a little bit better for our kiddos, make sure that we're working together, that we're communicating, we're responding more efficiently, and reducing some of that trauma by coordinating our services. So I'm really proud that we've been able to accomplish that in such a short time. That's kind of the end. The last page is just a little quote that I think is something to be proud of. Again, I think that the fact that we're able to do this and that our community is prioritizing our children is something that we should hang our hats on. So I just want to thank you guys for the support, for supporting the program. Chief and his department have been super supportive, and they participate, they show up. I know I can get a hold of them. It's been a really good working relationship, probably one of the better ones that we have in the county. So I'm very thankful for that as well, and thankful for you guys' support. So if you have any questions.
I would just add that Jennifer took this on as a project when she got hired at Isaiah's place. She wasn't originally hired for this, so she's taken this on, and the product you see today is really from her experience and her heart and soul being poured into it. So I appreciate all she's done. Last year was a great success. We had been going in the previous times over to Montgomery County till they stopped allowing us to come over there to use the care house because of funding issues, and it was going to be $1,000 per visit every time we went. And as she said, we had 3 cases last year. It would have cost us $3,000. I've worked with Jennifer last year. Again, this year we're going to pay the same as we did last year. That was in the budget that you approved for $1,000. I think we're getting a steal, that's for sure, for all that we get back out of that. So I try to help her as much as I can. I do serve on the board to help her as a board member, and I attend all the meetings on a monthly basis, either myself or the administrative sergeant, to make sure that we have full participation in this and that we're on board with what's going on, because this is something long needed for our county, unfortunately. It's one of those hidden things that you never want to talk about really in public, but you need. So here we have it.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for all that you do, the time that you've invested, and the time that you spend on all of this. I mean, it is greatly needed and greatly appreciated also.
Sure, thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
I just appreciate it. Your presentation last year was super eye-opening, so thank you for all that you do. And thank you for coming back and actually letting
Of course.
us know what
Yeah.
happened in the year.
Yeah.
I like that.
No, I'm happy to. I'll keep doing it as long as we're happy. Absolutely.
I'll invite her
Thank
every
you.
year.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yep.
All right, next on the agenda is the Calumet Road Joint Township Microseal Project.
Turn that
Mr.
over to Mr. Herron to elaborate.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
In your packet, you'll have the first page that says micro surfacing. Obviously, with asphalt prices and trying not to get behind on roadways, Calumet Road itself is one of the top 5 connecting roads to state routes in the county. I think everybody in West Milton uses it, I'm sure. The thing about Calumet is it's actually a joint owned roadway with the township. So we met with Strasser Construction last year. Strasser, one of their biggest things is micro sealing and doing pavement repairs versus asphalting. They're kind of a leader in Ohio. They're out of Dublin. When we first started looking at micro sealing, the product was not very good. It just didn't hold up. But they've come a long way with the emulsions. It's like a polymer. I mean, it's night and day compared to what it was even 8 or 9 years ago. So I reached out to, we met with them last summer, Clint, Megal, and I reached out to some other communities that had used it previously and have used it within the last few years, and they concurred. Calumet Road is a perfect road for micro sealing. Basically what we do is, working with the township, we're gonna go in with our Durapatching machine and do a lot of just patch and sealing. And we're gonna take our crack sealing machine in and seal every crack and crevice. And then they come in and put, the reason that I figured out where my numbers were off, which is another page in the section, but I did a single, I think I estimated a single course, but we're actually gonna do a double course of micro. Due to the traffic counts and the amount of traffic we have on Calumet, the double's definitely what we need to do. So it is, everything in here is state bid pricing because they do a lot of work for ODOT. Page 2 is the proposal they sent, which will include the double micro, temporary striping, because basically after they put the micro down, we have 2 choices. We leave Calumet closed, or we temp stripe it until the permanent striping can go down. You just have to on a rural road like that. And then the permanent striping, obviously. Page number 3 is just basically a signed page from Union Township that agrees to pay their portion of the micro sealing project. And then I also, on page 4, sent them an update on the pricing after I calculated the, what the double seal would be for that project, and they are fine with that. The page after that is basically just explaining that without doing our paving and the micro seal yet, I'm just estimating that we may be under on the budget as far as the whole entire paving goes. But when I'm talking about that, I'm also talking about the ADA ramps that we're doing in-house. A lot of that's gonna depend on concrete costs and how much we have to do per ramp out of 24 ramps. So I'm actually not 100% that we're gonna go over, but if we get into any milling problems this year, we may. Just like, it's almost rare that we don't have some extra milling on the areas we find during the project itself. So I'm just giving you a heads up. If we do, I don't think it's gonna be any major amount. But one good thing about that is we're actually saving, with the double micro seal, we're saving about $45,000 versus paving it. And that's the double. If we were just doing a single, it'd be closer to 50. And from what I've gathered and talked to other communities, there should be no reason why we don't get another 8+ years out of that surface after we do our thing. Again, the township's gonna provide stuff, we'll provide stuff, we'll work together from start to finish. They've asked me just to do the inspection and make sure that, you know, everything goes to plan, and which isn't a problem. So, and then on the last page, just letting you guys know how I came up with the numbers. So I just wanted to make sure it was fair and accurate, so I put something together so everybody could see the portions.
What was the timeline you anticipate for that
So I would
project?
like to do Calumet around the time we paved, which would be July.
All right, so sometime before July, we'll bring authorizing legislation.
Actually, it would be great if we could have it done, I'm sorry, I meant to say June. It would be great if we could have it done prior to July 4th, but if it's gonna fall anywhere close to that time frame, then we'll just do it.
I've asked the law director to go ahead and draft the authorizing resolution, and then we can get it on the agenda early enough to make sure we can get the project done. That's all right.
I think you guys will be happy once it's all done, so. And we will, the only safe way to do it is to close it down while our crews are working on it, because the blind curves and trying to do some of that stuff half and half is just next to impossible. So, but we'll do the Ever Bridge and do all the postings way prior to the dates we have it closed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Council have any questions?
Yeah, what, I wanna say it. What's the advantage of it really between the salt and all that stuff? Is how much longer are we gonna get use out of that as we are to asphalting and?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's actually a huge difference. So basically, it's kind of like sealing your driveway, only this particular product is made more for heavy duty traffic and things like that. So by Durapatching it and crack sealing it and then micro sealing it, there's no penetration of moisture that's gonna, for the potholes that we have in there now and stuff. So that sealant will basically be a block.
So money-wise, we're better off to do that than we are to asphalt, and then 5 years later have to asphalt again.
That's the hope.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Ben. Next on the agenda is the Hay Street project update and proposed legislation.
And that's also Mr. Herring.
The resolution, which Lene helped me with, which I appreciate. Because I missed that last part. The resolution in front of you basically is for the Hay Street Waterline Project, which is an upgrade of the water line between State Route 48 going to before Milton Potsdam Road. The contractor is going to be Finfrock out of Covington. They came in low, but I know they're reputable. Finfrock's been around for a long time. They do good work. The only thing is there's probably lots of questions that we can't answer till we have the pre-construction meeting. We hope to set that up, within the next couple weeks. We're hoping to have our pre-construction meeting, and that'll be everybody involved sitting down in the same place for this. So the detour route will be basically stay Route 55. You got 571 and you got 48, and it'll be 55 in between both, because basically it'll be closed off at from Milton Potsdam. You'll be able to use Milton Potsdam, and that's it. So I'm sure early in the project there'll be some traffic on maybe Terry, that sort of thing. But the official ODOT detour will be 55 between 48 and 571. Don't know the dates yet, and don't really know the length of the project without talking to them. But I will tell you that because they're doing the service lines in the right of way only. So since they're not doing service lines residential, this project will be a little bit faster than Miami Street was. So,
Which was pretty fast.
yeah.
All right. Got any questions or discussion?
Is there a reason why we're not doing the residential?
So on Miami Street, we got a grant to basically do all the way into the home to replace those lead lines. This particular project didn't qualify or was unable to get that grant to do it. So they'll have basically lead-free, copper or plastic up to their, basically where the curb stop or just outside of the right of way.
So if they choose to do that themselves,
Yes.
they've got a good starting point now.
Correct.
Okay.
They won't have to worry about the street and all that.
Copper or plastic?
What's that?
Did you say copper and plastic?
I said copper or plastic.
Or plastic?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
Next is the energy aggregate contract updates.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packet, you have a copy of the email I received from our representative. He explains that AGE was bought out by another company, which is why new agreements are required. You have copies of the proposed agreements, one for each, one that's with the new company, each being the gas or electric. And there is the opportunity, if the council so wishes, that we can invite Mr. Harmon to come to a council meeting and personally answer any questions. But basically, they got bought out, so we need to sign new paperwork, and our existing agreements are going to end at the end of the year anyway. So we'll update them now, and I guess he'll be talking about what they expect in terms of rates for the next time period. Is the council, does the council desire Mr. Harmon for me to schedule him at an upcoming council meeting? Or do you have any questions?
So nothing changes for the rates for now?
Not for now. They'll
But-
change next year once this term comes to an end.
I'd rather.
By re-signing them, does it extend it?
It does not. It just
Okay.
takes us to the end because there's a new company that owns AGE.
I say he comes when we're ready to think about re-upping at the end of
Okay.
the year, but that's, if nothing price-wise is changing
I
now.
think so.
Obviously, the law director has reviewed the agreements they've proposed. Whenever I see power of attorney, it does make me a little bit nervous, but I understand it's simply giving them the authority to negotiate the new agreements that they'll be presenting to us at the end of this year.
All right.
Sounds good.
So as I understand it, we will not invite Mr. Harmon now. The authorizing the legislation for me to execute the agreements will be on the next regular council meeting.
Well, I'm gonna ask a dumb question.
Go for it.
By not signing, does that leave us open to any other better pricing?
I don't believe either signing or not signing affects the price. I would expect that they would not renegotiate for you if you've not agreed to continue to work with them.
That would be my guess too, but I'm
Yes.
just
No,
making sure that we're,
I can ask him that question, but that's what I would expect the answer to be.
I mean, I would hate to sign, to continue on what we were paying if somehow things have gotten cheaper.
I doubt that will
Okay,
happen.
I have no
would-
idea,
I would
no
expect
idea,
if
just
you have the opportunity
had to
lock in
ask the
those
dumb
rates
question.
again, and I'm not an expert on energy, but I would suggest that it's more likely that prices will go up with the next contract than they'll go down.
So is this, I'm asking because I'm new to understanding
No,
this.
please.
So is this particular thing that we're looking at here is just for until the end of the year.
This is because a new company bought them out, and they're anticipating of negotiating a new agreement for the next aggregation. And if you're not familiar with the aggregation, that the village enters into a contract with a company that negotiates for all the residents who've agreed to participate in the aggregation. It's all voluntary. You don't have to do it. By Ohio law, you're allowed to try that again, allow you to choose the provider for both electric and gas as you wish.
Right.
But history, I think, has shown that an aggregation typically gives you a better price per thermal unit of gas or so much of electricity than doing it on your own. So I know our current rate is 35 or 45% less than the other market through the traditional suppliers of gas and electric.
So when will we get the decision to decide if we're gonna stay with them, if we can use them?
At the end of this year, they'll start talking about what they can get on the market in terms of next year's term.
And what they're gonna offer us?
Correct.
So then would we talk to other companies that do this similar thing?
We have not in my time here, but nothing prevents you from that. Gas and electric aggregation is something that I had not encountered in the previous states where I worked. I think it's a great thing because the prices are very competitive. I have a staff member who lives outside the village and doesn't have that option, and her electric rates are much, much higher. So to me, it's an advantage to participate, but it's entirely at the discretion of the residents.
To my understanding, how it seemed is we compared them to what our, if you didn't participate in the aggregation, what our typical bill with the other main providers were, just a simple, basic comparison,
Right.
and they always came back better. And, you know, most people I know stayed with the aggregate. Few people, you know, may have fell prey to the door knockers that come around and
Right.
kind of bully people into telling you you can save money, but if you just do basic math, it seems to always come out.
I know
Better.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, no, no.
The last time this came up while I was here, I got calls from residents outside the village wanting to participate with the village's aggregation, and I learned that by law they cannot. I believe the county considered creating an aggregation because of the disparity between the market rates and the aggregation rates. I don't know if they successfully completed that or not. But I got calls from folks, well, I have a West Milton address. Can I participate? So I looked into it, and I found that by law they cannot. Mr. Harmon said, I'd love to have them, but I can't do that. I can't accept it if they're not inside the municipal limits.
But are you asking, is there another Mr. Harmon company,
I'm-
another aggregate company
Right,
that can say this is
Just to
ours
be
and
very
this is
transparent,
theirs?
like, I'm, like, American Municipal Power and AEP, like American Electric Power.
Right.
Like, are those the same kind of companies that this is?
No, AES is not, I don't believe, because there's two, under Ohio deregulation, as I understand it, they either fall into the category of a supplier or someone who gives it directly to the customer. And I think AES may actually be both, but they have two different arms. I'm sure there are other entities that provide aggregation, but I don't know who they are, and they've never approached us.
And they're not sending us letters.
Exactly. Now, there are lots of companies that do the door knocking, as you described, and say, or phone calls. I mean, I get phone calls at home. You know, if you have AES, you should switch to us. I just ignore them because I think we've got the best deal. But we'll have to look at it again this fall as we're entering into a new contract.
Is that similar to, like, I got a phone call today from Energy something, and they were offering like a 10.7% per kilowatts. Is that something similar to that, or?
It sounds like it is. I don't know that I can speak definitively, but yeah, there are clearly competitors to this company.
And some of them want you to sign a contract.
Of course,
Okay.
of course.
Now, this company called me today. I said, I'm not gonna sign a contract.
Okay.
But I let them, it's for 2 years, 10.7. And if you find somebody else that's cheaper, yes, you can get out of it.
Well-
Because it's not a locked-in, but it's held price for 2 years.
Clearly, we'll have to take a close look at what rates that they offer this later this year, when we're preparing to either accept going with them, or if the
Right.
council so wishes, we'll try to explore what other options are available on the market.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right, next is the fire department turnout gear.
I'll turn that over to Chief Jay.
Okay. Every year I try to replace 4 sets of turnout gear. NFPA reg states that you can only have your turnout gear for 10 years and it times out. So I try to replace 4 sets every year. Last year it was $12,000 for 4 sets. This year it's $16,000. Price has gone up that much. That's just the turnout, the bunker pants and the coats. But several years ago, when we went with Janesville, we used to buy Morning Pride. We went out and just to see what was being offered, and everybody liked the Janesville, how it fit, how you could move better in it. It's lighter weight, better protection. So that's what we chose to go with. So that's what I've been buying every year since.
Thanks. Thank you. Any questions, student council?
Still good.
Yeah, it's not state bid, but it's.
All right. Thanks,
sole
Chief.
source.
Let's see, next will be,
Sorry.
oh, okay, sorry. Next is the proposed update on curbs and sidewalks.
I will also turn that over to Mr. Herron, and I would point out to the message in your packet from Ben that began to explain what the changes are. And so, Mr. Herron, do you want to highlight some of the changes?
Sure. Basically, going back to long before I was here, and maybe from the very beginning of time, the property owners have always been responsible, or West Milton's time, property owners have always been responsible to maintain the curb in front of their residents. But going through our curb sidewalk construction alterations, it's almost like it was implied, but the word, paved sidewalk and abuts and crosswalks and approaches, but curb and gutter wasn't just singly spelled out. I just think it's in our best interest to make sure that it is. So I basically 50.09 on the sidewalk construction and alterations. Everything stayed the same on it except for the underline and bolded and italicized. It just adds curb and gutter. And then on section L, there's just one new section. So it's pretty cut and dry, just that it's always been implied, but it never really says it. So.
All right. Oh yeah, I like that, where it cleans it up, makes it more clear, it's easy to read.
Yes.
Yes, what I would suggest if the council wants to review it more closely, and if you'd forward any comments or questions you might have, and I would expect that we'd have the authorizing legislation on the agenda at the next council meeting.
All right.
So when curb has to be replaced, like, say the road's been milled as many times it could be milled, and you know how they connect, they always try to be super careful, and I think most of the time they do an amazing job getting it right up to that without damaging it, at least to my experience on the properties I've owned here in town. But so that is actually the property owner.
Yeah, I can tell you that I don't really ever remember seeing the mill damage solid curb.
Oh, I've never.
If it moves, because some of those streets you're doing, when you get below like maybe 4 or 5 inches, there's a pit run base. The pit run base actually has larger aggregate in it, and if the mill catches those, sometimes they'll nick it or something. But the ones that you see fall apart are the ones that you can kind of tell before they mill that are just in
Bad shape before
I
they-
usually video our areas first, and that way we've got everything documented before milling. And Wagner Paving, their mill crew will always say we hit that. But not all contractors are like that. So
Because the curb doesn't actually, like, I know where my property pins are, they're on the other side of my sidewalk, inside my yard. The curb lawn is technically right away, right, or?
Yeah, once you get like from the back edge of the sidewalk out, that's pretty much right away. There's areas
I mean,
like
I know
Mr.
it.
Cox
I
who
know
doesn't
it.
have a sidewalk, but I mean.
I know I can't plant trees in it.
You
Yeah.
own it, but you don't control it.
I know, I know where my property pins are.
But I'm saying it's, yeah.
Yeah, but
You're responsible.
I have seen curves
Yeah, what I
that's
meant.
been damaged pretty bad by snow plows and everything else. And has also where your sidewalks are even connected that curves, it's even damaged their sidewalks. I don't feel the property owner should be responsible to
Like-
fix that when the city tore it up.
Yeah,
The
so
city's doing
like,
its job in plowing the street. You can't prevent plowing.
Can't prevent plowing, but.
This is not a workshop for your discussion, sir, it's for the council.
yeah, I'll give you an example. On Water Street, I think it is, it's pretty much barrier curb through there, and everything's solid, and then in
Right.
front of one property, it's all gone, and then everything's solid. The
Right.
new gentleman that lived there said, the previous owner said the snowplow broke this, and I'm like, no. I said, I mean, this crumbled to nothing. I said, that whoever poured this section, the concrete wasn't proper. I mean, it's literally, you can look at it and see where it just disintegrated. I mean, we've chunked out pieces of curb, but I mean, that's not, like one snowplow isn't gonna ruin, you know.
Well, and I'll say this, they, when they came around doing the, running the fiber, they screwed up on the edge of our property, they screwed up the curb, and you guys went after them and made them replace it.
Yeah.
And made them fix it, so.
Yeah, we still do. some
Yeah,
of
yeah,
this,
so I know you guys pay attention to them, I know you guys pay attention to when they're damaged and make
Yeah.
sure it's made right, and I appreciate that, I really do.
Like, okay, another sample, when I get ready to do the driveway, yes, they'll hook to the street, but your right of way is you guys come up and you do something different. You take care of that at your expense, right? You're not gonna, if you damage my driveway or come into your right of way, that, you have to fix all of that, right?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well,
the
you know, like
apron.
I have from the road to where you put my right of way lines,
Mm-hmm,
there's about 10, 15 feet.
mm-hmm.
If I pour all new cement out to the road, and you come up there and widen the road or do something like that, you're gonna fix that yourself then?
I mean, if it was a road widening in the right of way, I'm sure that would be taken into consideration. Like if the city was gonna come and do a widening project, yeah.
Okay, just like when you made my right of way, it's way up from the road. If I do sidewalks, I'm about 30 feet, 20 feet up from your actual road
Mm-hmm.
to where you're gonna make me sidewalks. You're gonna make me put curbs and sidewalks clear up there in 20 feet of that lined up with the sidewalks?
I don't know. I know, so basically what Mr. Cox is saying is where his right of way is, it actually isn't even straight. It's kind of
That's right.
So it's somewhere between like 15 feet to maybe 18 feet. So if that ever got widened, I mean, that would be a city project, right? I
I
mean,
guess we'd have to see exactly a drawing what you're talking about. I don't think the village would ever be unfair with any homeowner in terms of its responsibility of public right of way versus private property.
Because I'd have to get the city up there anyway, if I go to do sidewalks. If they made me line up with Market or water, that's up in the middle of my yard, from where my drive is, that goes right up behind that telephone pole.
yeah, it's really
Clear down the
weird
middle of
how
my
it-
front yard.
Yeah, it's like.
And how could you put curbs there if you're gonna, I mean, up there, when you're talking 20 feet from the sidewalks out to your road.
Right, I'm sure all that would have to be
But
majorly looked at and engineered.
I think that in individual cases though are gonna be discussed like during permitting, right? Not
Sure.
necessarily,
Sure.
Yeah,
like, not something that would have to go
Well,
before
I know it's
council,
not
right?
gonna be a cheap deal, especially for me, because as far as I would have to go up Market.
I'm just super impressed, Ben, that you could come up with a mental image and knew what he was talking about from that. So,
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
just,
it's just weird how your
He was up there and
driveways.
made.
just says how long you've been doing this and how
Yeah.
much attention you pay, Ben.
Yeah. It was surprising to me after I looked at it. I measured it 3 times, so.
I know it.
I would suggest the same with this language. If the council wishes to review it and offer any comments or changes, and expect to see the legislation at the next council meeting to get this updated.
Yep.
Thank
This
you.
maybe not the, obviously not the reason that you brought this up, but, so if someone's sidewalk is totally cracked, bumped, or like, you know, when tree roots are under them and they're all jacked up, so then is that reason that a notice would go out to them?
Yeah, I
to
mean,
repair?
basically, that's all in here, it's just the
Yes.
curb part that wasn't. Yeah, so,
Homeowners
yeah.
are
That makes
responsible for
sense.
the sidewalks.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments?
All right. Thanks, Ben. Next is the proposed update of regulations on weeds and grass.
Yeah, as council and the mayor may recall, this is an issue that has been discussed more than once in the past. And so I've asked the law director to make some updates. As I recall, one of the primary issues is the current ordinance. The requirements for notification to the property owner before the village can go in and mow it were deemed excessive. We spent the whole summer mailing them letters, and then 10 days later, another letter, and so on and so forth before we can clean it up. And in some jurisdictions that are nearby, I believe they could do one notice at the beginning of the year, that if your yard is found to be not in compliance with our statute on the length of your grass or the condition of your yard, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Broche, but that once we've published that notice community-wide, we can then move forward with going in with minimal notice to go in and clean it up and have the homeowner pay for it. Is that accurate?
Yes, and I gave you two proposals. I apologize, I gave you the second proposal right before the meeting. Just because the first proposal was based off of the Huber Heights that we had been talking about, how they run theirs. They do one citywide notice that goes out, and then anytime anybody's in violation, they actually have a placard that they put in the person's yard that cannot be removed until it's done. I didn't know if you guys really wanted to go that route.
Staff doesn't.
And it has to be done every time. So,
Only if it's followed with a community pride award.
and it has to be well seen and like, and I'm, okay.
Yeah, I'm not
So-
digging that.
Second version.
So the second proposal is there's still a citywide notice that goes out. And then you pick dates, like I think the one I had seen was May 1st through October 1st. And if anybody's in violation during those dates, you send them a notice. You only have to send one notice per year. So if they do it again, you just go and mow the property and assess it. You
No.
don't have to give them repeated notices for violations. So you give the one notice to everybody. If somebody specifically violates it, you send them a notice or post the notice at their residence, and that's it.
For the
So
rest of the year.
Right, for the rest of the year. Every year that would start over. But you don't have to keep giving them notices every time. You don't have to put something in their yard. It saves the
Postage and
employees a
time.
lot of time to, not have to go out there and keep posting. So,
When we do our citywide notice, how do we distribute that? Is that on the water bills? Or how do we?
I assume it would be in a newspaper, is it?
the one in here, I think, was in a newspaper and on the website.
Off the
Okay, so
website.
newspaper,
You
website,
can do
okay.
both, so.
Yeah, we could do that. That makes sense?
So that would be like the regular notice, and then, so all of us here get informed of, and then this one doesn't mow her grass.
So you would get one either sent to you or posted on your door to do it within 5 days.
I would
and then
expect counselors to
done.
get it personally delivered.
But that would be it. So if you did it again.
Code enforcement would
30
come
So
out.
days
then,
later.
okay, so if I do it, like, I know this is the rule. I don't mow my grass is too long.
Code enforcement would come.
Chief
give
Wright
yours.
comes to my house and tells me to mow my grass and gives me a letter. I choose not to mow my grass.
Right.
So you won't
Ben has
notify them
his team
anymore.
come and they mow my grass.
You'll just go ahead and do it.
And then I go, I'm just gonna do this again. And then they keep mowing my grass. Like, I don't get that second, okay, that makes sense.
And how long is it between would they have to correct it?
That's what you guys would come up with. It's usually between 5 days and 10 days, so,
I was gonna say, it's a grass ordinance, you can't give them like 30.
no.
No.
I mean, the one you
It-
have
it-
now
it could
is.
It could cost twice as
ridiculous.
much to do the cleanup if you're waiting too long.
As you may recall, we have at least one, and I think more than one, owner within the village that our crew has mowed their grass every time it's gotten mowed for the last 4 years. And they pay it, and they pay it. So I don't think we charge enough.
Yeah, right, we need to make that not, like, you were acting like, cool, come mow my yard every time, I don't wanna do it.
My kids will
think
do it
that's-
cheaper than the city.
I think that's something that needs to be considered, the amount we can charge for staff time, because my guys don't wanna do it, and it takes away from other maintenance in the village, but that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, we need to make it not.
It needs, I would think that it would be expensive and it would have to be done fast.
It's
Like,
not cheap, but apparently it's not expensive enough.
Yeah, but a 100-year-old lady can't get out there and mow her
That's
yard every
different.
week.
But no, but-
100-year-old lady,
Hire Chris's
we're gonna
son.
work
you have,
with,
you can, yeah.
Well,
because
and-
she'll call us.
And hopefully the council of churches gets involved and we get some volunteer people to help out there.
I actually have 2 church youth groups now that I've talked to that are interested in helping out situations like that. I did not have that previously. So
And I
since
know how
last
most
summer-
neighbors are, when we've had a property next to us that's
What?
up for sale,
Without a
nobody's,
doubt.
we just go mow it.
Without a
We
doubt.
take turns.
I'll go mow it
I,
myself.
I mean-
I don't wanna
I've
see it.
mowed
Yeah.
dozens over the years, but yeah, so, but,
Makes my property look bad, so I'll go next. door.
exactly, exactly. So take a look at it and let us know which version or which detail you want. And again, I would hope to have this on the next regular council meeting, to have it in place before mowing season hits us. If it stays like the weather today, it's gonna be sooner rather than later.
Yep. So they get that first letter, and then they'd say, let's say we go with 5 days. They have 5 days to comply with the letter, or, you know,
Yeah.
I feel like there needs to be like another letter after that. Can we shorten it to maybe like 3 days the next time? But then after that, so it's like
Two
they see the
letters?
pattern. Yeah. Well, there's a 5-day, and if they, let's say that we have to go mow it,
Okay.
their next time, it's only a 3-day letter, or it could still be 5, but there's no third letter, because every time we do it, you know what I mean? It's like that counts as, okay, that's one occurrence. The
Okay.
next time is the second occurrence.
Whatever council wants.
I think you're
Because-
trying to avoid a second letter, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, if you got a $250 administrative fee that that's on top of it, if they know that that letter just kind of says, hey, you know, you got hit last time, are you sure you want to get hit again? And if they choose to go that route, and then by the third time, we'd go, okay, well, you're just kind of a habitual repeater offender. I don't know, I'm just trying to think of a way to minimize the number of letters that goes out while also maximizing the communication.
I think the
Whatever council
water
wishes.
bill would be good, put it on the water bill.
And I mean, can we send it out on Everbridge and put it on social media?
Well,
and
I'm just thinking, once you
Like,
get that.
here's the rule. We know this is the rule. I'm gonna send you a letter. If I'm going 45 miles an hour down Main Street, there's a sign that says 25 miles an hour. And I choose to go 45 and break the law and break the rules. I don't get pulled over and say, hey, here's a letter, you need to slow down, and then get pulled over again for not slowing down, and then get another letter, and then third time get a ticket. It's like,
We give you paper each time.
Yeah.
I know.
I know.
It's been a while.
We all know we have to mow our yard.
Whatever.
I mean, I just feel like we know we need to, like, if we make information available at some point, it's like, here's a letter to mow the yard. You're not mowing your yard. It's 6 months out of the year. I don't like to mow my grass.
Well, and I think it is considered the second notice you are giving them, because you have the first notice that goes out to everybody.
Yes.
Then you have a second notice that's particular to that person, and in that notice, you can include as much as you want. I mean, if it needs to say, well, it will say, you know, if you won't receive any notices after this, this is your last notice for the rest of the season,
Yeah.
so.
Well, staff will implement whatever council wishes, and we'll make it work.
I'm not, fervently, pushing anything. I was just trying to, if I were on the other side, I know there's been times where I've been like, you know, I'm gonna have to get a bush hog in here or maybe some goats because, you know, between the rain and, you know, it's like then your mower goes down, right? You lose a tire on a mower when you first start and you're, oh no, and then, you know, it's like.
What is the rule on
Now
goats?
you're wasting.
What about you add language in that first letter that goes to them personally, that if you contact the village, obviously we'll work with you. But if you fail to contact us within a certain period of time, we can go mow it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that seems fair.
I think that's
That's the
fair.
problem, they almost never, if they talk to us, if they communicate, we'll work with them. If there's a situation that it's a health issue or an age issue or
Right.
anything like that, we're not gonna go mow it and stick them with that.
Right.
It's, the key is the people who ignore it, or they won't accept when we send them certified, they won't sign for it. So, again, staff will implement whatever policy changes that you make. I just know from having done this in every place I've ever worked, how the system works and how people choose to work the system.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of putting in, like, if you're unable to take care of your yard,
If you
please
will
call us, because,
contact us,
yeah.
Right.
you will contact us, we'll work with you. No one wants to punish anyone inappropriately. It's, you're punishing everybody else if you don't get the ones who won't do it to mow their yard.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the one letter after the, you know, is okay. I don't like 5 days.
How do you
5
want?
days seems
What do you want?
too short.
10 days? 2 weeks? What do you want?
No, 2 weeks is too long.
Okay.
So,
That's
you
why
know,
I said, tell me
somewhere
what
between
number you
7
want.
to 10 days. I'm just saying.
That's fine.
You know, a week is, and I would also support if you wanted to look at a structure of increasing that fee multiple times, you know,
Okay.
so those that are habitual, they,
Then it's gonna
you know,
increase every time we have to mow.
they have to pay.
That's fine too.
They have to pay more every time, you know, and cap it at whatever you want, but I mean,
Okay.
because those that you do mow all year, like you said, you know, if it is to incentivize them to get, you know, have them take care of their yard, then, you know,
Yeah, and understand, those houses are not typically maintained well anyway. So I mean, the house I'm talking about's been vacant for 4 years.
yeah.
The only ones who live there are raccoons.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy to mow. I mean, it's,
Right.
it's mowing and dealing with the jungle.
Mhm.
Typically, depending on how quickly my crew can get out there.
Yeah,
So they don't like it anymore.
yeah,
You may recall the first summer I was here, we had an issue with a person who had not mowed their yard for most of the summer. My guys went out and cleaned it up. He came back and complained, you ran over my hose, you ran over a bicycle, and I went, because the grass was so tall, they couldn't see it.
right.
And he literally wanted the village to pay for all this stuff he'd had laying in his yard that the guys hit.
Should send him a bill for the damage he did
To the mower,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But that's just an example, so the average person, this doesn't apply to. This is
Right.
the very small minority who don't take care of their properties.
You just got to tell guys to be a little more careful.
I had that conversation until they took me out and showed me how tall the grass was when they were working on it. And then I kind of changed my tune, because
Okay,
it
okay.
was several feet tall. But you're right, you're right. Any other questions on that? Please let us know any other comments. Lene has heard you, and we'll go from there.
All right. Okay, so next is the proposed legislation for vacant building registration.
All right, that, you have a draft in your packet.
Yeah.
We took the language from the other community that we found. And I think what I would suggest is the best explanation of this program is the language under the purpose. The purpose of this chapter is to establish a program for identifying and registering vacant residential and commercial buildings, to determine the responsibilities of owners of vacant buildings and structures, and to speed the rehabilitation of the vacant buildings. Shifting the cost burden from the general citizenry to the owners of the blighted buildings will be the result of this chapter. The intent of me proposing this to the council is to go hand in hand with the code enforcement efforts that we've done the last 2 or 3 years. And so this will help us. The primary purpose of this ordinance is for us to gain information about vacant properties, so we know who to talk to, who to deal with, and to try to keep them from falling into disrepair. or causing another burden as far as code enforcement because they're falling apart. So the primary issue is information, and as a secondary issue, it is to encourage them to get them reoccupied. It's also important that the building is utilized as its zone. What you don't want are buildings, for example, in our downtown that are being used as somebody's storage building. It's a downtown building, it needs to be reoccupied. Either reoccupy it or put it for sale. So for example, if you put your building for sale with a licensed realtor, that buys you a year. And if you haven't sold it in a year, you can ask for more time. It's just to encourage people to not let buildings set and continue to deteriorate. The language is such that the village has a great deal of latitude in how much, if any, encouragement you provide for them to move, but as long as they register and cooperate, I think it makes sense for us to at least give it a try for a couple of years and see the effect. Any questions?
It might say in here, and I haven't totally read the whole thing, but
That's all
like,
right.
if I were to put my storage unit vacant downtown building up for sale for an excessive amount of money that no one would ever buy it for.
Correct.
$1 million.
Right.
At some point, I think that would be an issue, and I'll defer to Ms. Broche how that would be covered, but I would expect that you can't put it for sale for some amount that's nowhere close to what it appraises for. We know what the tax value would be, and so that would be a matter of trying to work with the property owner to make sure they understood that you can't have it for sale for 10 times what it's worth for years and years and have no repercussions. Renee, how would you respond?
I agree. I mean, there's gotta be a certain period of time where it can be up for sale. It's not sold by then.
Right, and so if we deem that they're not making a good faith effort to sell it, they no longer qualify to not have to pay the fee that doubles every year. That's the carrot. Don't leave it set vacant. Starts out at $500, well, that's not a lot, no, $1,000 for the commercial properties. Goes to $2,000. I mean, if somebody's had it for 3 or 4 years and there's been no movement, I would say we adjust the amount.
There's gonna be properties here, though, that have been in this description for decades, not
Yes, sir.
3 or 4 years.
Yes.
And I see us having the complete right to tell people to maintain properties and
Okay.
to look at them a certain way, but I think it's egregious overstep to tell them they have to have a industrious business in there. And
No, it just has to be occupied,
well, I mean, does occupied count if they're storing their stuff?
only if it's zoned for storage.
So we
Now-
may get a lot of applications for storage zoning
Counselor,
requests?
This is my proposal. Council will change it, amend it, or do nothing as you see fit. Based on the desire I've seen in terms of code enforcement, this makes sense to me. Obviously, if you don't agree, we won't do it. Or if you wish to modify it.
Well, the mayor gave me a great quote, because I said I like more carrot than stick, and
Okay?
he told me, you know what a carrot is without a stick? And I said, no, what? He told me free lunch. And
Okay, I never thought of it
so I
that
get the intent. I really do. And I will
council
use
does-
that quote again.
If
But-
it helps, one of the next steps, I think, should you put this into place, as you know, we are still working on updating our ordinances as far as zoning code. And I think that would then be the next step, is updating and making changes on some of our zoning codes.
So 2 days after we mentioned this in the last meeting, I got a call from a upset property owner in town.
Okay?
And I really tried to assure them that this wasn't the intent to go after people that kept their properties as they do, and
Okay.
had actually 2 buildings on the property. One was in use, and one he's just been struggling to find a proper use for it and whatnot, and it's probably been in the family for, you know, more than a generation. But anyway, long story short, it creates a little bit of panic when people hear this stuff, and they worry, and it, you know, some of them are family-owned things that probably do need to have something changed with them, and I get that. But, you know, the other thing is, I think for some of these folks, nobody wants to be the person that does something wrong with something that their great-great-grandpa owned or built or whatnot, and that there is a very personal tie in a community this old to some of these things, and just that we tread lightly and delicately as we do. I know code enforcement, when they go out and tell somebody, they do it with all their right heart and soul, but
I was just gonna suggest what you described would also cover some of the issues we deal with in code enforcement. I'm sure some of those folks don't believe they're in violation when they're, because it was.
oh, they've watched it
building-
deteriorate over decades, so.
Right, so.
You know, yeah.
This is,
So a little at a time.
this was my suggestion based on what I was hearing and the emphasis on code enforcement and taking it to the next step. If the council doesn't believe this is in the best interest of the community, obviously you'll decide not to do it and we'll go on. I think it'll help us. Again, I think the emphasis would be, same as code enforcement's communication. Right now, none of those property owners have a reason to communicate with the village. But if they communicate with us and we believe they're making any kind of effort at all, that can dictate how we respond. So we can be as generous or as strict as council wishes in implementing, should you choose to pass some version of this ordinance.
But the point is, without this, we don't have the option to be generous or strict because we can't do anything with
Correct.
vacant properties at all.
Correct.
We have
Yes,
nothing.
That is correct.
And so, a lot of times when we talk about any kind of change, there's those unique situations or those one-offs that kind of come to the forefront, and we have to be considerate of those things, but the greater good of the community is what is most on our minds. And, yeah, sure, there will be some landmines to step, but I think it's, overall is a good approach or a good thing to do. To Don's point of, you can't tell somebody what to do with their property. I've been thinking through that, and I don't know that I have it all figured out because we never do, but if the village has zoned something business or industrial or whatever, it does so that the tax base can be increased so that industry can flow, or else we
Right.
have it zoned something else, right? And so if those things aren't happening in you know, like you mentioned, the downtown stores, for example, you know, then I do think there's some, hopefully some, at least with this, there would be some ability to offer carrots more than sticks, but, you know.
One other piece I might add, as you may remember in code enforcement, one of the keys is property being grandfathered. So it was being used as X, and then the zoning code came in, it got zoned differently. So it's in the commercial district, but it's a residence. As long as they keep occupied as a residence, they can continue to use it. Because one of the keys in grandfathering is if it's vacant for more than 6 months, it loses the grandfather. So let's say it was a house, people lived in it for 100 years, but it's in the commercial zoning district. They move out. 8 months later, a new family moves in. Doesn't mean they can't live there, but before they move in, they have to go back to the planning board and ask for a variance to allow them to continue to use it as a residence. And they can show it was, but 6 months, we have no way to document on the grandfather. That would be very helpful as we're trying to improve the zoning code to be consistent with the actual use, is knowing when properties go vacant or how long they've been vacant. Right now, we have no way to document that. And you always have the ability to go back and allow them to continue it after that period of time. But you don't if you don't know.
Just like uptown, there's a nice building sitting up there. She'd been sitting vacant for 2 years now. She
Yes.
bought this building and she wanted to, like a sandwich shop or something like that.
Okay.
For some reason, zoning or something stopped her, said the building didn't qualify for that.
Well, I'm pretty sure those zoning is stopping somebody.
Well,
from
anyway,
downtown to build.
whatever it was, it's still sitting vacant.
Okay.
And since then, we've had a couple trailers come in with coffee and stuff like that. We've
Right.
had coffee and donut shops open up and everything.
Yep.
And yet she couldn't put this sandwich shop in there because there was some interference with somebody. So it's still sitting vacant.
It could have been the Board of Health, though. A lot of
It
times,
was-
like, when it comes to food and stuff, like, the Board of Health is like, they've got their hand in there to make sure everything's all right. It sounds like that might have been more of
If
what it
that
was.
happened
And there's, I
more
mean,
than
I don't
3
know.
years ago, I don't.
It was 2 years, it's been 2 years, it's been set.
2 years I've been here, and that's not the case. More than 3 years, or let me rephrase that. No one contacted me about utilizing a building and was told no, they couldn't. And I would have been the one to talk to.
I thought there was an issue with plumbing and health department on one, somebody wanted to use for something.
We've done
That
everything
rings-
we can.
Well,
to
this was a
encourage.
video shop,
No.
Oh,
it
the-
used to be
So,
the video
We've
place.
had all
There
kinds
are-
of people want to buy it and they won't sell it.
right,
Because
there,
this lady bought that place from,
But the lady who bought it won't sell it for somebody who wants to use it.
before you purchase a commercial property, it's typical that someone would do diligence and ensure that whatever kind of business they want to put into that property is possible. So if they, I mean, that's just kind of how commercial real estate works, right? If I want to go buy a building downtown and I want to put a restaurant in it, prior to that, I'm going to contact the building department and the health department and the village and make sure that I'm able to put in what I want to put in, just like we've seen them do with Stillwater Crossing. We've watched them do their due diligence to make sure they can put in the things they want to put in. If I make a choice to purchase a building and then decide that I just want to put something in here and then later learn, because I chose not to do due diligence, I later learn that I cannot put that said property in there, the first thing I'm gonna do is put that building up for sale. I agree with the carrot and the stick, but if I have a building that people want to buy, that I'm paying taxes on, that I can rent out, they have their carrots because of the economy we live in. Those carrots aren't working. We have vacant buildings, we have people that want to buy those buildings, we have people that want to start businesses. And if you know who funds our soccer teams and our high school sports and who buys stuff at our local stores, it's the local business owners. And we can't get those if we just have buildings sitting empty. I do have a couple questions. If it's a commercial or industrial permit, I think like my contractor hat comes on, right? So there's one of the buildings downtown it says building permit in the window from 2009 or 2016.
Yes.
That's not a valid building permit at this point. Like
No.
I would assume
No.
in the state of Ohio building codes have changed, right?
No, it
But
is
it's
not.
easy to put that there, and if I'm driving by, then I think, oh, something's going in there. Can we put something in there where if they are actively trying to restore this building, that we have information for the contractor and the architects and that they're communicating and something along those lines? Like,
Absolutely.
like you don't get to put up a building permit card from
Off
10
the-
years ago.
Off the top of my head, it would be language when you contact the village that you are making an effort to restore or improve a building, that you provide the following information, your contractor, your architect, whatever makes sense. But again, that's a communication issue. We would love to know if people are actively involved in trying to improve any buildings that they own in the village.
Because I feel like it would be easy for me to say, yeah, I'm working on fixing it up,
Sure.
and then end that sentence and go home and not do anything.
That's right. I agree.
okay, this subject is sore subject. Just like my camper situation. Everything I've ever wanted to do with the city of West Milton, I called the council on everything. Got permits for everything I've done. My last project was the camper. My answer was, I spoke to the wrong person. I spoke to somebody that works for the city of West Milton that told me what the regulations were. And so before I bought this big, expensive motorhome, I put it on my property. 2 weeks after I get it from the property, then I get a letter from the city that I'm against an ordinance violation. And you made comment that you should, if I'm gonna be a realtor, I'm gonna call around and check on this stuff before I do it. And I thought I was doing the right thing before I did it. I would have spent the kind of money I spent if I would have spoke to the right person, I guess. But I thought when I was speaking to somebody on the city that told me the regulations, the stipulations, and all that, and I had all the stipulations. I had the asphalt, I had everything, and yet it was a corner lot, which that was not mentioned at the time. I wouldn't have spent the kind of money I spent, so I'm still going to do everything I can to try to correct
So,
that.
my next question, the realtor part, I like that it had the 12 months. And I think the other questions were answered. So like, if it's a property that's zoned commercial, it needs to have a commercial business in it, correct?
It has-
Like, I can't say I'm occupying it because I'm living in the back of the building.
Right, you have 4 business districts and 2 industrial districts in your current zoning code. When we complete the update, that'll probably be reduced. But it has to meet, whatever it's B1, B2, B3, or B4, has to meet one of the uses that's listed in that zoning code. Now, most of the 4 are pretty generous, there's lots of different uses that are available in each. But that's one of the keys, as we update our zoning code and we make changes, it will be more important to know when properties have gone vacant, so they're no longer grandfathered under their current use.
Makes sense.
That makes sense.
Any other questions? Please continue to review it, make suggestions, comments, and I guess, and at the end, let me know whether you wish to see this legislation on the agenda at some point in the future.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
So next is old business and the Stillwater Crossings street lighting plan.
Correct, you have in your packet, this is Stillwater Crossings South. This does not include any of the Randall residence portion. Randall is responsible for their own lighting. I think most of it is installed, but they don't have lighting with the quads. So this are the 4 phases of Ryan Homes. Choice 1 used our current requirements for non-PUD projects. So had this been built under the normal ordinance as opposed to the PUD, those are mostly the distances required in that. As I understood it from Mr. Morris, I believe there are 4 of the posts that are a few feet further apart than what that would require, and that's because they're located where the existing electric pedestals are. That's because the pedestals were already put in on the first 2 or 3 phases. He did say on the 4th phase, they don't have the pedestals in yet, and they'll be able to put them exactly the right distance because they'll locate the pedestals in accordance with the street lighting. So they are waiting on the village's approval of this plan or comments if you don't choose to approve it. And they will then enter an agreement with Miami Valley Lighting, which is the street lighting arm of AES. The last time I communicated with Miami Valley Lighting, I was told that it would be at least 6 months after they have a signed contract and those streetlights paid, that they'll be installed. And that's on Miami Valley, not on Centerstone. Are there any questions?
I got a question for Ben and Chief. Do we currently, within the city, do we have any courts like that that don't have streetlights within the court? Because that's where, growing up, that's where we always decided where the basketball hoop
Like
went,
in the
was
cul-de-sac
under the
and
street
stuff.
light.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that throughout majority of our town, in those courts, there's at least one street light.
Yeah, it seems, well,
I'd have to
I'd
drive
say
around.
for sure that's good. I mean, I know we have some that do have streetlights. I'd hate to say everyone, cause I'm not 100% sure.
So you're talking, looks like what, there's 4 or 5 cul-de-sacs that don't have one
Yeah,
closed?
because they're pretty far from the other,
Yeah, you know, they are.
the other existing streetlights was the first thing that popped out to me, but the rest of it looked just, trust, Mr. Herron's, he's looked at the street, and Chief, paid attention to the streetlights of this town a lot more than I have, I'm sure, from a safety standpoint and from a lighting standpoint. How does this look to you guys?
Right offhand, the only cul-de-sac, I know, I think at the dead end of Wright, they definitely have. Of course, that's a newer development. There is a street light, I believe, in that cul-de-sac at the dead end of Wright.
I think Lawndale and all those down and through there off of,
Yeah, I'm pretty
Off
sure
of
they
Park.
do. Yeah, I guess the best thing to do would just be drive around and look. I've got to go do 2 streetlight numbers for outages
Yeah.
tomorrow. Me or Chief will check that out and then get right back to, just to see if we have any that don't or what that is.
and I was surprised, I went to back out my driveway and I thought somebody did something to the back end of my car, because I couldn't see to back out. And as I got out to the street, I thought something didn't seem right. So I got out and looked, and the street light was out. And it creates that much darkness that the tinted windows on the car makes it, your backup lights. So, did it affect driving down the road? No. But was it noticeable? Absolutely. So, I think there is a purpose to have them.
Ben and I'll check that out and we'll send an email to you, Mr.
That'd be good, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions?
So the roundabout that's there, how is that, is there like some sort of like central illumination for that, or?
I was thinking that too. That's kind of like a miss in the boat on that, not have something there lit up.
I'm not completely sure. I think what there shows 2 luminaires close, but not right in the middle. If I'm reading that correctly?
Yeah, it looks like at least 3 of the sides.
3 on the sides, yeah.
Yeah.
I would guess that most roundabouts, at least that I'm familiar with, they don't put them in the middle because cars jump the curb and much more likely to do damage than one on the edges.
All right.
If you're not familiar with the roundabout, I've seen too many people drive right through it.
Take the shortcut through the middle, huh?
Yeah, and Major Sheridan, just to add to that, I think like on those, since these are mostly LED,
Right.
I haven't seen the light head, but you can increase the lumens on the 2 proposed to basically
Sure.
cover that.
Yep, no,
whole-
I agree. That's good, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Please include that in the email. I guess, so I'll wait to get a report from the chief and from the service director. I'll then forward that to the entire council and wait on your comments. I guess, so at the next council meeting, you could take official action, either, if there's changes you want, let me know and I'll try to get before, so that should you decide to, you could take action at the next council meeting so they can get them ordered.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. One other comment, if I may. As you may recall, we did a codification of our ordinances to get them up to date. We were many years behind schedule. We have probably 8 or 10, what I thought were full sets of the code in our storeroom. But when I actually looked at them, they're empty binders. So, any of you who have, were given a set when you got on the council, if you bring it in, we'll update it and get it back to you. I have a fear that we're gonna run short, because every councilman should have a full set. I'm not sure why we have 12 empty binder covers, but somehow we're gonna have to come up with full sets for everybody, for the law director, for myself, for the appropriate staff, obviously the chief. But so we may end up spending some additional money to buy complete sets, as opposed to just the updates. Now, they've already sent us, and staff is going through and pulling out the old and putting in the new. But I didn't realize those weren't full sets sitting in there.
Whoops.
Sorry.
What's a complete set cost?
I don't know yet, because we only paid, I mean, the updates were expensive. I mean, it was, it was about this thick of pages, and I think we got 15 inserts, and that was about $15,000.
No, for the nice fancy legal version that's needed by some versus just the information from Kinko's.
Yes, we would certainly price
Okay.
that as opposed to buying it from them.
Because I don't feel the need to have that.
Well, yeah,
But-
no,
but-
yes, we will certainly look at either running it through our copier and paying the cost, or taking it to Staples or someplace and copying it as opposed to buying it from the publishing company that we bought the update. We will not just simply order it, but I just want you to understand, I thought we were good to go once we got the 15 new sets. That was plenty for each councilman and so forth, so if you'll bring them in at your convenience, we'll swap them out and get them back to you, and we'll figure out how to replace, so that everybody has one.
It's probably worth it to reach out to former council members.
I have,
Okay, to see if,
at least the last two, and they said they never got one,
okay.
so they don't have one to bring in. I haven't contacted the former mayor, I will do that. Am I missing anybody that's been on council since I've been here?
I'd just look at the picture and,
I can do that, I can do that, we've
Check,
got
me.
check
pictures.
with, did you check with, Tim Dews?
Dues.
No.
He
I
he came on just after me, and I know I got one, I've got one
Okay,
at home.
no, I have
And
not.
he
I
may have
went
been
back
given
to
one.
Sarah and with Greg,
Yeah.
and I was surprised to say, well, no, we never got one. Oh, okay, yes, I'll get with Tim, I'll get with Anthony, and see if they have theirs. I mean, there's of such great value if you're not on the council. I'm not sure why you would want one, but,
you would not believe the crazy stuff that's in there. I'm just amazed.
in here,
Yeah.
oh,
yeah.
you have, oh.
It's,
I'm sure
it's
he does.
Oh,
stunning
yes,
reading.
Yes.
Stunning reading.
I'll confess, I've read it, because I wanted to read it once I started, and the laws you've got on privies, and.
Yeah, I mean, some of the crazy stuff.
I'm telling you, I'm enough of a nerd. I read the whole thing, because I wanted to know exactly, I don't remember it all, but I read it when I started. It's interesting, how you have to properly dispose of dead animals inside the village, and if your cistern needs filled in at the proper, and I mean, there's a lot of older stuff in there that's interesting, that I don't typically use on a daily basis, but, it's in there.
Are you gonna do a scanned version of?
Yes,
the new one?
yes, we'll get the new PDF out with everything.
I appreciate that.
That's probably what I'm the most
Is it gonna be
interested in.
searchable?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's searchable now, but that's the old one. We're gonna get it updated, and that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was included in the price for the codification, is a new PDF.
I would.
All right? All right, let's see. One other piece, I've been trying to get the meeting with the township and the school board scheduled. I offered them 2 dates, March 14th or March 21st, but I'll have to confess, at the time, I wasn't aware that the levy vote is the 19th. So I contacted Superintendent Ritchie today, because I'd not heard back from him about which date the school board preferred, and he didn't have an answer. So I said, well, we really need to get this going if we're gonna meet. As soon as I have an answer from them, I will share it with you in an effort to try to get as many school board members, township trustees, and you at a meeting prior to the 19th. Just wanted to make you aware that's where that's at. That's all I have, I believe, before we adjourn to go into executive session.
Andrew Sheridan.
Yes.
Did we have-
South Tower.
Oh, the South Tower,
Talk about that real
please,
quick.
I apologize. Can Mr. Herron briefly update
Yeah.
you?
Just dating
Sorry.
back to last May, we were approved and the bids were open to do some work on the South Water Tower. Due to some schedule conflicts last year, and having to have Tim needs to be here when we do this. And so that's one of the times it didn't work out. They are actually moving in next Monday to do the work. Just basically, they're gonna do some work on top of the tower to seal it. They're gonna clean out the interior, pressure wash the exterior, put some lockings on, and then while they're up there, the FAA lights on top are out, so I'm gonna have them find out what's going on with that. But, Tim and Nick and the staff will start draining the tower Thursday, get everything prepped. We use as much water as we can. Like, we'll use as much water as we can out of the tower. Fire's been contacted, Ludlow Falls Fire's been contacted. Expect the project to take about a week and a half, weather permitting, 2 weeks probably at the most, but we'll be fine. We've taken these out of service many times before and had no problems. So we are putting out on all of our media resources. There could be some pressure fluctuations and things like that during the project.
That'll go out on Everbridge tomorrow night.
All right.
Thank you.
When did you say that was starting again?
Pardon?
You said it was starting
Monday. We'll
Monday.
actually start draining it Thursday, and then they'll start moving their equipment in on Monday.
Monday the
So
4th.
This
Yes.
Thursday, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Leap day.
All right, so any other new business?
I have one thing. It's a fun one, and I think I said it last time, but this Friday at 2:00, there's a grand opening, ribbon cutting for Timeless Taco. And if you haven't been there, you need to go because it's delicious.
All right. Any other new business? All right, I'll open up the floor for citizen comments.
Hi, you know me, Mike Kraft, I'm here in West Milton. Just wanted to make sure you didn't forget about the library code, the ordinance book there, if you will. Because citizens, I refer to it and other citizens go there and refer to it. And you're right, there is some really interesting reading in some of those ordinances. People ought to go down there and check it out.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
James Green, I live here in West Milton. On these are vacant buildings. Now, where's that start? Does that start to count each line? Each, where you enter it's West Milton, you exit West Milton?
Yeah, I mean,
It's a village. It would be the
Entire
village.
Or you just gonna have it right in one little spot up there?
It would be the entire village.
The entire village.
It's a whole entire village. And good luck.
definitely a big job. All right, any others? All right, thanks a lot. Are there any motions to go into regular session?
I make a motion that we go into our regular, session meeting.
Second. All right,
What,
Regular session.
Regular session.
Exec-
okay.
You have
Yep.
to go into regular.
Oh,
session.
that's right,
Okay.
that's right.
Don, you seconded.
Yep. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Metz,
Yes.
Ms. Gregory,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mayor Hurst.
Yes. Are there any motions to go into executive session?
Mayor, I move the council enters into a brief executive session pursuant to section 412B5C. Is conference with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject to a pending or immediate court action.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Metz,
Yes.
Ms. Gregory,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mayor Hurst.
Yes. All right, there'll be no further council business that partakes after this, but everyone is welcome to stay. We'll now convene into executive session.